Can we actually prevent a disaster? That's one of the questions that came up during a training I attended recently. And my answer was yes. But with an important distinction. We cannot stop a typhoon from forming. We cannot stop a volcanic eruption. We cannot stop an earthquake. But can we prevent those hazards from turning into disaster? Well, the answer is yes. And that's one of the biggest thing I've learned during the experience. From understanding the difference between hazard and disaster, to looking at how climate change is affecting the Philippines, to actually creating a hazard map for our own community. This training really made me look at disasters differently. Hi, I'm Nix, and this is Nix Now. And if you're curious about the Philippines beyond its beaches and tourist destinations, make sure to subscribe to this channel because these channels explore the Philippines politics, economy, society, culture, environment, and the issues shaping its future. Well, now let's begin. Hi guys, welcome to another Nix vlog. Today I'm attending a meeting and training organized through Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management, or what we call like APAD Philippines. I'm actually part of the Human Resource Network of APAD here in Surigao City, so being able to participate in activities like this is one of the ways I get involved in community work, particularly when it comes to disaster preparedness and resilience. And honestly, this is something that matters a lot to me because we're in the Philippines. We're in a country that's highly exposed to different hazards. We experience typhoon, floodings, earthquake, landslide, volcanic activities, and different kinds of climate-related hazards. So disaster preparedness isn't really something that should only concern disaster responders. It concerns all of us. Because when something happens, the first people affected are the communities themselves. But first, before we go further, what exactly is APAD? So the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management is involved in strengthening disaster management preparedness, resilience, and community capacity. APAD actually originated in Japan. A story goes back in 2009 when disaster management experts and different organizations from countries in Asia Pacific region gathered in Hiroshima, Japan to discuss how countries could cooperate more effectively when disaster happened. Then in 2011, representatives from different countries meet in Tokyo during the Asia Pacific Relief Summit and work together creating a framework for cooperation during disasters. In 2012, the Asia Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management was formally launched at the 5th Asian Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. So while APAD operates across the Asia Pacific region today, its roots are very much connected to Japan. And I think that's very interesting because Japan itself has a very long history of dealing with earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoon, and other disaster. So the idea how simply to respond after disaster happens, it was also about creating a system where different countries, government, businesses, NGOs, and communities can already have relationship and mechanisms in place before the next disasters happen. And here in the Philippines, we had APAD Philippines, which serves as the country's platform within this wider alliance. APAD Philippines was formally established as non-stock, non-profit organization in January 2021. Its vision is centered on building disaster-resilient communities through collaboration between the business sector, civil society, and government. And that's actually where my connection to APAD comes in. I became involved through my organization in Surigao City, and when APAD reached out and invited us to become part of this network, and I became part of the Human Resource Network of APAD here in Surigao City. And when I saw that they were conducting this meeting and training, I really wanted to participate. One of the first activities was actually a game. At first, it seemed simple, but there was a lesson behind it. We were learning about the reaction because Whenever something unexpected happens, we react. Sometimes we think first, sometimes we panic, sometimes we freeze, like me, and sometimes we immediately act. But in disaster situation, the way we react can make a huge difference. And that's why preparedness matters. Because when you are prepared, you're not starting from zero when something happens. You already know what to do. You already know where to go. You already know who to contact. And you already plan something about it. So preparedness isn't necessarily about predicting exactly what will happen. It's about making sure that when something happens, we know how to respond. And then came one of the questions that really stuck with me. Can we avoid disasters? And my answer was yes. But let me explain about it. We cannot avoid hazard. We cannot tell a typhoon, please don't come here. We cannot tell an earthquake, not today. We cannot stop a volcano from erupting simply because we're not prepared for it. But we can reduce the possibility that those hazards become disasters. This is one of the most important things I learned from the training. A hazard is a potentially damaging event or phenomenon. A typhoon is a hazard. An earthquake is a hazard. A volcanic eruption is a hazard. A flood can be a hazard. But a disaster happens when the hazard seriously affects the vulnerable communities and causes significant disruption, damages, losses, or casualties beyond what the affected communities can cope with using its own resources. So the hazard itself isn't necessarily the disaster. Our vulnerability and exposure are part of what determines whether hazard become a disaster. And this leads to another idea that really caught my attention. And you probably heard the phrase, natural disaster. But increasingly, disaster risk professionals emphasize that the distinction between natural hazard and natural disaster is far of what we are actually learning. Nature creates hazard, but disaster are shaped by human decision, vulnerability, exposure, infrastructure, preparedness, poverty, environmental degradation, and many other factors. A typhoon is natural, but whether the typhoon causes widespread destruction and loss of life depends partly on how exposed and prepared communities are. And that also reminds me of something very simple. The Earth doesn't need us as much as we need the Earth. We depend on this planet for practically everything. Our food, our water, our air, our homes, our communities, our livelihood, and yet human activities can also make communities more vulnerable to hazards. Another major part of the training was climate change. And sometimes climate change gets presented as something very complicated, but one thing is clear. Our climate is changing and communities are already experiencing its effect. We experience period of extreme heat, we experience intense rainfall and flooding, we experience changes in water patterns, and these aren't just environmental issues. They affect agriculture, they affect education, they affect health, they affect livelihoods, they affect infrastructure, and ultimately they affect people's lives. Then came one of the favorite part of the training where we asked to create hazard map. And this time, we weren't just talking about disaster theoretically. We had to look at the actual area and identify the hazard that could actually exist around. I was grouped with fellow participants from Surigao del Norte State University, and together we start mapping out the area. We had to identify possible hazard, where could flooding happen, where could people be exposed, where are the vulnerable areas when existing controls are already in place, and what else could be done. And then we had to assess the risk. We look at things like likelihood, how likely the hazard to happen, the impact if happens, how serious could the consequences be, exposure, how many people or assets could be affected, and then we consider the existing controls. What are we already doing to reduce the risk? And what else can we improve? We then had to determine whether different hazard presented a high, moderate, or lower level of risk. And this activity made something very clear to me. Risk isn't just about something, what hazard exists. You may also ask, who is exposed? How vulnerable are they? How severe could the consequences be? And most importantly, what can we do about it? After we finish our hazard map and assessment, we had to present our work. And of course, I ended up being the one reporting in front of everyone. Because apparently, that's what happened when you join these activities. But honestly, I enjoyed it. Because we weren't simply presenting a drawing, we were presenting our understanding of the risks around us and what could potentially be done to reduce them. After the hazard mapping activity, we moved to another exercise. We were asked to think about the possible projects, programs, and activities that could help address the risks we identified. And this was where everything started connecting. You identify the hazard, you assess the risks, you identify vulnerable people, and then you think, what can we actually do? And that's something I really appreciate about the training. Disaster preparedness shouldn't stop at attending seminar. It has to become, I know what the risks are, I know what I can do. I know what my community can do, and eventually, I'm actually going to do something about it. Near the end of activity, we were asked to write a commitment to ourselves. And honestly, I think this is one of the simplest but most meaningful part. Because after spending hours learning about the hazards, disaster, climate change, risk assessment, and preparedness, where we ask, what are you going to do? After all the activities, discussion, presentation, and commitments, we finally reached the closing part of the activity or the training. There was an awarding and recognition for the participants, and after spending the entire day learning and interacting with different people, and honestly, felt good to see everything come together. Looking back at the entire experience, I think the biggest lesson I took away with this, we cannot control nature, but we can control how prepared we are. We can control how we build our communities. We can control how we communicate the risks. We can control how we protect the environment. We can control how seriously we take warnings. And I want to ask you, do you think the disaster can actually be prevented? Or can we only prepare for them? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching. This is Nix Now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Before my birth year, there was a Colorado 2000 wildfire. This is as big as but one city. It happened outside of our country. Therefore, when I know about it, I know why some people love to reside in the Philippines. Because a lot of places outside our country are already facing much than we experience. Because of their land are not as blessed as we are. Now I know why, how important it is to protect the place we live in, because Philippines is sometimes considered the safest and comfort place to live. Hope we do also. Love and protect the Pinas. I commit to be always be an environmental warrior. Thank you.